Hi, I'm Andrea Klim, and you are watching Turn to the Stars. And today is March 3rd, 2015. And before I go into the topic of today's show, I just want to touch on some news at Turn to the Stars. We have coming up on March 14th our 28th Psychic and Holistic Fair, and it's going to be at the Yard Restaurant in Manchester, and we have a great group of readings to offer and healing therapies and vendors. We're really packed full this time, as we usually are, with a really great group of practitioners. So as always, we look forward to seeing you there, and it's always a great day. So anyway, coming back to the show today, I'm going to be talking about the total solar eclipse that we're going to be experiencing on March 20th. And but before I begin to go into the total solar eclipse, I just want to talk a little bit about the full moon, which is just a couple days away, which of most of the insight, a lot of the insight that this full moon is bringing to light is already present with us. The awareness is just growing, and the emotion is just growing. You know, that emotional tide that comes with that full moon. This full moon is in Virgo, and at 14 degrees in the constellation of Virgo. And I've got a chart to show you of that full moon. There it is, lighted up with the yellow at the bottom of the screen. And one of the things that is very significant about this full moon is the mystical rectangle, or which is the traditional name for what you're seeing in this chart, but I have called it angel wings. And you can see it if you look to the right of the screen, probably about 3 o'clock. You can see what looks like a rectangle formed by two angles from Pluto, one angle from Pluto to the moon, and another angle from the ascendant in the chart to the sun in Chiron. So angel wings, or mystical triangle, is very significant when you see it in a chart, especially in a full moon chart such as we have here. And it is unveiling that we are going to land on our feet no matter what in these work situations, in these health situations, that we are going through an emotional process of breaking down, analyzing, and figuring out where things fit. And this full moon and the days such as we're in right now leading up to it are quite unveiling in areas associated with work, with health, the processes that we go through on a day-to-day basis. And this polar connection between, polar opposite, the sun in Pisces and the moon in Virgo, so that polar opposite connection between the sun and the moon brings to light our awareness of our judgment versus our discernment. And on March 13th, we're going to be experiencing the 7th and final square between Uranus in Aries in that constellation and Pluto in Capricorn. And I have a graph. You've seen this before on the show. There it is, and at the very top, this is the strong influence that this Uranus Aries squaring Pluto and Capricorn. It's going to be exact, that square, meaning the challenges that we've been faced with to change from a. It's been over 2 years since 2012, June of 2012, that when this whole process of change and restructuring and awakening and, really changing on a very root level has been affecting us. And it's interesting because if we could just bring that back for a minute, this this seventh square between Uranus and Pluto is going to affect, influence, change in the human form of the seventh chakra, which is the crown chakra, which is at the very top, the purple, which is really our spiritual center. And it says that we are changing. That area is very much like, it's kind of like the end or the completion of the beginning of the change that is happening in that pineal gland area or the third eye area. And the pineal gland or the mind or the third eye, it's from that area we ask ourselves, what pattern would I like to change? So it's a very intellectual thing in some ways, but also very spiritual, because symbolically, if you think of the earth, the North Pole is sort of, there's a top of the earth, or like the seventh chakra. And symbolically, that North Pole is melting and spreading. It's basically what we're saying, it's being said in the spiritual community that it's spreading, as it melts, it's spreading its wisdom over the earth. And the pineal gland is I just want to go a little bit into what the function of the pineal gland is, because it is the chakra that is going through a lot of change in the human form. And what it is a small endocrine gland that's in the vertebrate brain. And it produces melatonin, serotonin, derived hormone, which affects the modulation of sleep patterns in both seasonal and circadian rhythms. The pineal gland, the word pineal comes from the root word pinea, which in Latin is for pine cone. And so the pineal gland is a pea-sized gland in the exact geometric center of the brain. And as I said before, it comes from the root word pinea, which in Latin means pine cone. And the pine cone symbolism appears all over in ancient worlds, from Sumeria to Greece and Roman traditions to the Vatican's and the court of the, they actually named it, some of the names were the court of the pine cone, and it actually goes back to the staff of the Pope. So it's highly reverenced to be of high psychic and spiritual significance. So why are so many ancient cultures obsessed with the pineal gland symbolism? The answer is probably found when in the biophysical analysis that was done on the pineal gland interior. So basically, this study looked under the skin in the skull of a lizard, and they found that there lies a light-responsive third eye, which is the evolutionary equivalent of the bone-encased, hormone-secreting pineal gland in the human brain. It's very interesting. So the human pineal is denied access to light directly, but like the lizard's third eye, it shows enhanced release of its hormone, melatonin, during the night. And the challenge is to understand the mechanisms which regulate the synthesis and release of melatonin. So that's been a big topic of study. And the pineal gland is the mind's eye. And where we looked at that picture, it's the mind's eye. When dissected, the reptile's pineal looks much like an eye, with the same shape and tissue, says Dr. Cheryl Kraft, who's a PhD chair of the Department of Cell and Neurobiology at the University of Southern California. And she said she thinks it's a funny coincidence that the organ has, for thousands of years, been called a third eye, actually has all of the components needed. This pineal gland has all of the components that are needed for a third eye. So it is possible that when ancient traditions spoke of a third eye, that they knew what they were talking about. And on top of all of this, the pineal gland is also thought to secrete a chemical known as DMT, which has the nickname of the spiritual molecule. And DMT is believed to be released during dream time, during spiritual and mystical experiences, and during the time of death. And it is a chemical compound that, when ingested, has the most powerful hallucinogenic effects out of any other drug. So the molecule is speculated to give us all spiritual experiences, and it just so happens that it is housed in the pineal gland. And historically, the French philosopher René Descartes, 1596 to 1650, emphasized the pineal gland in his writings, calling it the seat of the soul and the part of the body in which the soul directly exercises its functions. He said that this was the center at which the soul and the body interacted, and where we receive our messages from the divine. And also in the Bible, it's written that Jesus said in Matthew 6:22, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." So the idea of there being a spiritual eye is no new idea. So I just thought it'd be interesting to provide some information on the pineal gland, or the third eye, or the mind's eye, or our spiritual eye. You know, we have our two physical eyes that we can see, but we also have the third eye, which is really another way of seeing. And now I want to go on and talk about the solar eclipse on March 20th. So March 17th was the seventh square we just talked about, and in March 20th is the total solar eclipse. So March is a really active month for, full moon, March 5th, which is 2 days from today. March 17th, the seventh square of Pluto and Uranus. And March 20th is the total solar eclipse. And I have a solar eclipse chart. There it is. And it shows the yellow area, shows the total solar eclipse. And it is a south node eclipse, meaning that there are going to be things from the past that are going to bubble up for us to really understand and get clarity on, and become, these things will become more transparent. And you can see that this solar eclipse is at 29 degrees in the constellation of Pisces. And what it indicates that it is indicative that it's time to change some deep-seated behaviors, obsessive behaviors. And when I say critical degrees, it means that it's very, very important. When I teach astrology, we have a table of critical degrees, and 29 degrees Pisces is typically one, if you see that in somebody's chart, it means that this person is trying to make amends in this lifetime for maybe some behaviors that they've been on a cycle of repeating over and over and over. So critical degrees, very important. This solar eclipse new moon plants the potential for us to remember and follow through on our life direction. And, on the path of all that you experience in your life, you may find yourself asking, am I living the life that my soul came here to fulfill? That is another part of this solar eclipse, the seed that's being planted. Have I found the path that I am destined to find? Have I found that? Am I in alignment with it? Have I been able to learn who I really am? Most importantly, and with the wisdom, can you make the declarations that will put you on your life path and keep you there? These are really important questions that you might find yourself asking yourself during this time of change, of this total solar eclipse. Solar eclipse is about our identity, about a change, and it is basically leaving behind the old, making way for the new. But this solar eclipse is really looking at and acknowledging the old in order to redefine ourselves or recreate ourselves. And Pisces is really interesting because it's the last sign of the zodiac, whereas you've heard me say this on past shows, Aquarius is concerned with all of humanity and their interconnectedness, but Pisces is concerned with all of life and its interconnectedness. There's a great sensitivity. There's a deep emotion associated with it. When you look at the picture of for Pisces, there's a duality about it. There's a mutability about it. And so it means that, there's an adaptation. Typically, Pisces energy, people with it tend to obsess and find it very hard to emotionally pull themselves away from the road that they're on. And I found a really great resource that I wanted to make a recommendation to you on today's show. And it was by somebody that, a friend of mine who made this recommendation. And she said that there's this book, it's called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, especially with the seventh chakra being highlighted for changes to be, to be taking place. We're all looking at basically the roots of our being, and some of those roots go really, really deep. And we're looking to get some clarity on those obsessive behaviors and where do they come from. Whenever you want to change a behavior, you always want to look to the root. If there's something wrong with the root of a plant, you're going to find that problem showing up in the plant that has grown out of that root. So whenever you want to change a behavior within yourself, you want to look to the root of where did that behavior come from. So very important, and I'd recommend this, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. You can find it on YouTube. It's actually a free audio book on YouTube, and very, very interesting and excellent information and guidance that comes from that. So this book actually talks about the connection with our rooted values and how we are naturally caught in patterns based upon our roots, our upbringing, and those rooted beliefs. Very, very, very interesting. When you're able to identify what's off balance in the roots, recognize it as an old pattern when it comes up. This is the first step to creating new healthy patterns. So you can do that through your, your astrology birth chart as well. And anybody with planets in their birth chart with degrees close to 29, whether it be 26, 27, 28, 29 Pisces, or 0, 1, 2 of Aries, are all going to feel the incredible shifting happening and awareness that comes with this solar eclipse. And Earth brains, our brains, are being affected by this eclipse as well as by the seventh square between Pluto and Uranus. So very, very intense month, March. This eclipse can change things and blot the issues associated with them out forever. Think of it as a kind of a clearing away, a recognition, clearing away of the past in order to create new. And I would say that this is going to be a very positive change, meaning people coming together in understanding each other, and showing and expressing that there's a deep concern, groups coming together in a positive and a creative way. This eclipse, though, has an extreme polarity to it. It's basically a huge light that's dawning. A huge chunk of darkness is being taken away, basically, by this eclipse. And it's for each of us to decide what darkness is being taken away, making room for more light. This is also the equinox polar dawn, the spring equinox. And I have a picture of the equinox chart, which is the astrology chart for the spring equinox. There it is. And it shows the sun over on the right side highlighted 0 degrees Aries and 0 minutes. Just moved into the constellation of Aries. Spring has sprung, basically. And interestingly, this day also marks the beginning, as we talk about with the spring equinox, all that has to do with spring. And it is on this day, the length of the day will be equal to the length of the night. And the length of the days will progressively increase as the length of night decreases. Now, this is in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it is the other way around. So, want to just show you, I have another map, which is, there it is. And this actually comes from timeanddate.com. This is a map showing where this solar eclipse, the high, really high latitudes are really going to be able to see this. You can see it very pronounced, mostly over in Europe. That's where the most of the eclipse can be seen. And I believe that red line is the main path, but the shadowed areas in blue and yellow are also places where this eclipse can be seen. And again, it's on March 20th, and here in Manchester, New Hampshire, let me just find the chart here of the solar eclipse. It occurs at its peak at 5:02 a.m. on Friday, March 20th. And the equinox, the spring equinox, we're all set with that map. The spring equinox occurs at exactly 6:31 p.m. So it's just a little bit more than 12 hours difference. And this is all in one day, March 20th. And the solar eclipse does carry a very strong spiritual meaning. And, as I talked about before, the North Pole is distributing wisdom to places by its melting that it was not before, places that have never been reached before. And, so basically that North Pole, as it melts, is spreading water and distributing that out from that North Pole. And that's been, water's considered a way or an element that carries information, right? And so that it's being said that basically as the North Pole melts, it's spreading its ancient wisdom. And the solar eclipse is a phenomena that is below, but it shows itself above the icy horizon, 29 degrees, 26 minutes, right on the cusp of change. And that's what I mean by that phrase. There's this polarity vibe, a fundamental change in the way we each handle polarity. We're learning how to be balanced instead of obsessing over things. End of these obsessive behaviors, basically. Being able to see both sides of a story is going to be very pronounced as this eclipse energy comes in. Being able to feel compassion, even for people who are deep into, negative, dark areas. And there's this polarity game that is shifting. Using the frontal lobe of the brain to align with the divine mind to feel compassion for all in the world, not just the ones we like. This is a seed that's being planted during this solar eclipse. Basically, 19 years ago in 1996, whatever you were experiencing then, you're now finding completion, finding a place to put some things to rest that may have been a big part of your life from that time. So something is being seeded here. June and July, very significant months for everyone, whatever theme is pronounced in your life by this solar eclipse. You'll find that June and July is when it finds its place within you to finally find some sense of peace and a seat. It'll be a turning point also, June and July. Spiritual experiences are very evident with this eclipse. We'll all be inspired to seek inner peace instead of focusing on our materialistic goals. So find peace within your consciousness, within your mind and body, and everything else will fall into place. Find inner peace. Open up to all the possibilities. This is what this eclipse is going to do. This month carries a laser focus in on March 20th, the solar eclipse. It's like I said before, this darkness that's bubbling up for you to recognize, examine, and find peace with. And it's critical that you do. 29 degrees Pisces, critical degrees. And most importantly, what this eclipse reminds us to do is to turn to the stars, and you'll find your answers there. So I want to say thank you for watching Turn to the Stars and all your continued support. Remind you one more time about the Psychic and Holistic Fair on March 14th, Saturday, March 14th at the Yard. We'll look forward to seeing you there. Until then, take good care. I'll see you next week.